Your North Star. This is part 2 of the series, What Keeps You Moving? Welcome to today's topic, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Coach Tobias Forst, founder of Achilles Life Coaching, decade-long recipient of narcissistic abuse, and I've saved myself from it. And I accompany you on your journey to your personal freedom. Before we get into it and recap briefly where we stood in the previous video of this series, What Keeps You Moving, I must issue a trigger warning at this point. This topic today will be about the plan to end one's existence. Mine, concretely, 3 years ago to this day, on October 19th, 2019. If you feel uneasy with hearing about the plan of ending one's existence, I suggest that we see each other in one of the next videos, or you look to one of the previous ones. And thank you for getting into this video so far. For all the rest of you who want to hear what this is about, and when we talk about fuel source 3.5 from the previous video that was just hinted at, welcome, and let's continue. So as a brief recap for the image in your mind right now, where you are standing, where we're standing individually, we're at the engine, the locomotive of our life train. And it's moving, and there are a few fuel sources at your disposal, and you've chosen whatever you put into the oven so the engine keeps moving. And we talked about stages 1, 2, and 3 of these fuel sources, as well as stage 4. And there's one in between, 3.5, I call it. Let's recap. Stage number 1 is nihilism, not moving you at all. Stage 2 is the self-blame, the disappointment, and your sadness. You need to look that up. And stage number 3 of your fuel sources is your rage and your anger. All these stages burn, metaphorically burn, to a differing effectiveness and efficiency. The ideal state, the ideal fuel source, among that are 2 aspects that we talked about: your self-love and the discovery of your life's purpose, your life's mission. And in between, there is one more that is more effective and efficient than stages 1, 2, and 3, but less effective than stage 4. And this stage, 3.5, is what we will discuss today, for the reason that on this day, October 19th, 2022, going back 3 years to the year 2019, I opted for life. I chose life instead of my own end. So today I'm celebrating my 3rd birthday, and thank you for joining in today. So what was happening on and until October 19th, 2019? What happened was I was at the lowest point in my life. I had hit rock bottom. There's a video somewhere up there probably which details how rock bottom can actually be a gift to your life if you choose to open it. I had let myself go. I was passive-aggressive. I had a very short emotional fuse. I was sullen much of the time. Self-chosen social isolation was prevalent. I was not a good friend in my circle of friends. I thought I was powerless to help. I was also not a good partner in the relationship back then, and I contributed hugely to mutual estrangement. I was racked by hopelessness. Hopelessness that to the fact that in an inner monologue, and fasten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen, because this is getting curious now, I proactively chose at that time, in the months before October 19th, 2019, to not read any more books, because that was my internal argument, because that would not be to any avail anyway. It wouldn't yield anything positive. I had no self-worth to speak of. Many things didn't have a name yet. Narcissistic abuse and its role throughout the decades of my life. That scorpion from the Egyptian mythology, that scorpion, narcissistic abuse, didn't have a name yet. So I couldn't make it disappear in the desert, as the story goes. And throughout all that considered, including the depressions that I was diagnosed with back in the day, it was September 2013, and the side effects, or well, not really side effects, the factors from the long-term PTBS, they just continuously and in smaller intervals and in bigger bursts just erupted during this year of 2019. And I put a lid on all that with my own limiting belief that I don't deserve better anyway. This is it. This is all I deserve. No more, no better love, no more fulfillment, no real other successes. And I became numb to my successes, even be that in sports or the job or the jobs. They just didn't really register. So I thought, not seeing those successes, I thought that there is one success I can work towards, and I'll be really good and literally effective at it. And that is ending my life. So I started to rationalize throughout this year to the fact that assuming or observing, believing that I am my own biggest burden, I must be a burden to other people. So if I remove myself from the equation of life, I will actually be doing a lot of people a very big favor. That was the rationalization. And what followed throughout the summer was months of careful planning. People saw that I wasn't feeling well, but they were used to it by then with the phases of depression that I was known for, and I openly talked about anyway. But what I did, which led to the fact that people didn't realize what my plan actually was what is called compartmentalization. Imagine a person, this is the mind and the spirit, and this is the heart, the emotion. And in my case, I took heart and emotion and compartmentalized this into a very tight and sturdy box, and I wrapped it closed. I just packed it all in, crammed it in. Nothing is to get out, because I want to plan and move along that limited life path as I chose it, with logic and reason, and I had my own curious arguments ready why that is actually a favor to other people. That was the way to go for me back then, 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago. And now it had gotten really arrogant, because I was not only convinced of this being right, but even more that it was actually righteous, what I was about to do. And then with no emotion to influence me, having been compartmentalized sturdily. This box got cracks, and mere hours away from that night on October 2019, when I knew what I was about to do, that box burst open and emotions flooded me. And before I get into these emotions, I already knew what I was about to do. It was just a matter of, basically of logistics, because I didn't allow any feelings to interfere. I knew the when, I knew the how, and I knew the where. And without going into too many details, one I will talk about. I knew with my limited courage back then, I only had enough for a literal single step from an effective height that in turn would do the rest, would take care of the plan, the epilogue. Because I knew for some other ways of following through, in the case a moment of doubt during the execution of that plan, I would have either enough strength to get out of it, or in other cases I simply wouldn't have the balls to go through with it. But for a single step, yay, here we go. And now, hours away, on October 19th, 2019, that box of emotions burst open. And these emotions were feelings of love for my two cats, my cat, the lady cat Leia, and my tomcat Happy. And I knew these two little rascals would never understand why I wouldn't come back. These two forced me to realize my responsibility, at least for them, during a time when I had no self-worth to speak of. Happy and Leia gave me a second chance and gifted me my true and second life. I am turning 3 years old today. And whenever anything from my content helps you in any way, think of Leia and of Happy, especially Happy, who passed away on May 13th this year. And because both of them had, Leia still has and Happy had, not only a hand but a paw in it, why I'm here. And I'm never going back to that place in my mind and heart from 3 years ago. With all that said, ladies and gentlemen, this closes the circle to fuel source 3.5 of today's video. The fuel source 3.5 is love for others. It is more effective than fuel source of stage 3, rage and anger. Why? Because love for others is always constructive, while rage and anger can be, don't have to be, but can be, very destructive. But it is still less effective than self-love and your life's purpose and mission. And because you can actually love others without this having anything to do with yourself and how you feel toward yourself. But at times, ladies and gentlemen, in whatever moment you find yourself in, at your lowest point, your rock bottom, Fuel Source 3.5, love for others, can sometimes be the only lifeline you have. Why do I call this Fuel Source 3.5 the North Star? Because it is outside of you. It's up there. It offers you a direction. If you only choose to look at it. But it is up to you and to all of us to set the sails. No one will do that for you. No one can do that for you. So if anything, use the North Star. Let it lead you, let it guide you until such time as you discover within yourself enough nautical prowess to navigate without having to look up and ahead. Because back on your train of life, at the engine, at the locomotive, you now set the course, change the rails as you see fit. I am here today, ladies and gentlemen, because I kept moving and I am keeping moving. What will you do if you only keep moving? Be your own hero and be your own heroine. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.